It's January 11th, and we're fishing a lake in Oneida County in northern Wisconsin. And we're fishing for crappies tonight. We got out about a half an hour ago. Right now it's about 5 o'clock. And up here the crappies tend to bite pretty good at night. In particular, they start right at sundown. We're using a different technique than I was used to growing up in the southern part of the state. Down there we would just use a small jig rod and a bobber with a treble hook, split shot, and when I moved up to northern Wisconsin, I noticed that guys were kind of corralling their trucks, encircling them, if you will, on the lake, and then they had their headlights on, and they were kind of all pointed towards the center of the circle, and I was kind of confused as to what was going on. I took a drive by one of those groups and noticed that they had all their rods sitting in holders above the ice, and they weren't just standard wire holders like I'm used to, just holding a jig rod where you can pick it up out of the holder if you get a bite. These actually held the rod and kept the rod kind of counterbalanced so that when a fish would bite, the tip of the rod would tip down towards the hole, and these stands were anywhere from probably a foot to somewhere almost on a tripod that you could raise to 3-4 feet off the ice. Come to find out, that technique and that style of rod, if you will, is called a tip down. And since then, it's something I've transitioned over to, and it's a great way to catch crappies. In particular, it's an excellent way to catch crappies with kids. It's very visual. They can see the rod go down. They can run towards the rod and the rod holder when one's going down. And basically, you just lift it right off the holder, and that's what sets the hook. And then typical jig rod, don't need to reel it in. You just kind of lift it by hand until you get the crappie through the hole. So I'm with my daughter Michaela. In the state of Wisconsin, we're allowed 3 lines per angler, so we've got 6 tip downs out. And we did catch about a 9.5-inch crappie about 15 minutes ago. And they usually come through in schools. That was the only one, so it was an early riser, if you will. But typically, it's not uncommon to have 2 tip downs down at the same time. And if you've got a big group out with you, you might have 3 or 4 go down at the same time. So it's a real cool way to fish, and we'll kind of show you how it's done. Go ahead. Take this one yourself all the way up. Good. You can set a little harder next. Is he still on? Oh, nice. Nice, Michaela. That is a nice 10-incher for sure. Easily 10. That's going to go 11 probably. Nice job. Now when I set the depths for crappies, I tend to actually run my tip downs across a range of height in the water column. And I'll generally put 1 or 2 just 2 feet off the bottom. Then I'll put another couple 3 foot to 4 foot off the bottom. I'll put another couple halfway through the water column. And then I always put a couple just below the ice. 2 feet below the ice is all I'll do. And it's not uncommon at all for our biggest crappies of the night to come off those rods where the bait is suspended just 2 feet under the ice. So don't be afraid to run your baits too high. Tonight we're in 10 feet of water. It's basically just a mud flat that we're fishing on. We don't have deep water nearby, although we do have shallow water nearby and some pencil grass, and that's traditionally a spawning area for them in the spring. But they just basically roam this big mud flat throughout the winter, and feed off of minnows and larvae and little things buried in the mud and so forth. So we just use fathead minnows and rig them up on a very small treble hook, or if you can find like a weighted treble hook, a little jig. Fisca's makes one that's real nice. It's tungsten, I believe, so they're nice and small but still heavy for their size. They got a nice little treble hook in, and I just hook my fat heads in the back, right around the dorsal fin. Another good one. Just a simple tip for you. If your eyesight's getting like mine, it's getting a little tough to see, especially in low light conditions. And what I've done is I've spooled my tip down rods with high-vis line. I'm using 6-pound high-vis as a backing, and then about a 2-foot section of clear fluorocarbon as a leader. And what that high-vis line allows me to do is when we pull these fish up out of the hole, you know, you've got the line now laying in the snow. It might be caught by the wind, blown around a little bit, and especially if you've got kids with you and they're running around in the snow too, you can see where that line is, and you can kind of keep people from stepping in it or maybe getting it tangled in their boots. It just makes things a little bit easier when you're out on the ice, especially in low light conditions.